Thank you, Pastor Reed. So we're going to continue on with our program. We've got lots of slides we want to show you guys, and we're going to go through them kind of quickly because we've got a lot to share. But I'm going to invite my husband up to do this with me. Yeah. So we ended up calling ourselves the guinea pig group because, like Reed said, we were kind of the test pilot group to feel this out and see how this was going to go, and the Lord blessed. So we started our trip, and we can go ahead and advance through the slides. So this is our trip, just getting ready to go in the SVA bus. We went up to Dulles. We flew out of Dulles in a Korean airliner, and it took...
It's a Boeing 777.
Yes, for those who are interested. To some people, that is very important. So the first leg of the flight was 16 hours. We landed in Korea, had less than an hour layover, caught the next flight for Manila. So we get to Manila, and it is, what time at night was it, guys? It was 1 a.m.? It was midnight. Okay, so we had booked a hotel, but, we had not really expected getting luggage lost and things being delayed. So we had about 2 or 3 hours at the hotel, maybe. As you can see here, Pastor Reed was very tired, even from the beginning of the trip.
And there were the food. Well, there were some interesting. I think Jen, did you have something? Someone had something interesting on the.
Well, yes, I had the gluten-free menu, and one of their choices was shrimp and scallops. So, had to eat everything else.
So here we make it to Manila, and we are waiting for our shuttle bus, and everybody was very kind. I was rushing around trying to figure out where we were supposed to be.
And even though our phones technically had data, international traveling through T-Mobile,
it wasn't working very well.
So trying to call, we, I guess, emailed the hotel, like, hey, are you coming? And
we'd like to sleep tonight, someplace other than the airport. So we finally made it there. Everybody was such good sports. We made it into the hotel, slept for a couple hours, took a shower, up the next morning on our next flight to Palawan, which was our island. So this is a little puddle jumper, little place. We finally get in. Kanan's the big boy, helping out with the luggage. So Kuya Knapp, he's one of the long-timers there at the project. He's been helping my parents for the past, 15 years? And he met us there at the airport, picked up all of our stuff, all of our luggage. The girls went on a little trip while we were busy, and we ended up at the Adventist hospital to eat our yummy vegetarian food.
I will say I was a little stressed because when coming back here, we have 14 people plus baggage with just our stuff, with building supplies.
Tools,
and here comes, I was expecting 2 vehicles, and normally this trailer has sides. Well, I guess the sides over the last couple of years have fallen off, and there's only 1 vehicle, so it's like, oh no, like, what are we gonna do? But there's something in the Philippines is that there's no limits to what you can carry. I think her dad had a truck. It was essentially it was a Toyota Hilux, but it was essentially a Toyota Tacoma here in the States. I think do you remember how many?
14?
No.
14 people?
14?
They can fit a lot of people in there.
Well, no,
anyway.
no. Not the, I think they had like 30 people back in the day of the old truck.
Fit in there?
Anyways.
Anyway, they can fit a lot.
We made it work.
Yep.
I was very thankful.
Then we all loaded back in for our bus ride. Yay!
Yeah.
So on our way to Brooks Point, which is in the southern part of the island of Palawan. So we got there, and when we pulled into our hotel, Josiah and Faith saw that there was a little mango stand out by the road. So we got some pesos and made quick use of those.
This is the next morning.
This was
No,
the
this
same
is right.
night. Yeah,
Yeah,
this was the same day. So we packed it in. We got there. We barely got into our hotel. We went back over to my parents' farm where they have the hangar, and we repacked all of our stuff that would need to go in. So basically where my folks are at, you either have to carry it in on your back, whatever you want to take, or hire somebody to carry it in on their back, or send it in the bush plane. So we were like, hey, we want to send this stuff in the bush plane. So we got all packed up, and Ray was ready to fly stuff in for us.
This is a view from up into the mountains, just up, not in the same exact spot where the project's at, but just to kind of give you a comparison, the island is like, the lowlands are just flat, like all rice fields, so flat, 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 and then like just mountains, just
Mountainous
jetting
terrain.
up. There's no like rolling hills, it's just flat, and then,
Precipitous.
yeah.
Yep. So we have a little video of the super stall. Short field takeoff and landing, is that what it's,
Yeah.
the acronym is for?
I think there's some audio. It's just quiet right now, it'll get louder. This was a dream my father-in-law had when they first got there in 1995, but the dream, it wasn't possible. They didn't have an airplane capable of landing in that short of area at the time, but it wasn't until probably 2015, 2016 when they started building an aircraft, and so prayers were answered just 20 plus years later. So it really reduces a lot of work, and it allows people to get up in the
3 to
mountain.
4 hour transit versus like 15 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great. And look at the terrain is just gorgeous. Oh, this is coming in. Might as well show this. This is a bonus coming back out of the mountains, but this is the farm. So in 2018, I helped make the runway at the farm. It's right there. Very basic aircraft, but it gets the job done.
Anyway, we really appreciate the aircraft on the project.
Yeah.
So this was our last supper in civilization before the following day when we would hit the trail. So actually, this is really good food for that area. We've got some swamp cabbage, we've got some spring rolls, some rice, and these girls are ready to go. All right, so the hike. I'd like to invite Jen and Jazzy up to share.
You want the clicker or do you want me to just do it?
All right, so the biggest question we had, getting ready for this trip is, what about this hike? And yeah, here we go. So we got up, I would say we got up around 4 or 5 that morning and got ready to go, and went out, and it was about 20-30 minute drive to the trailhead. And so we got on the trailhead, and we all got in kind of little groups. Some people went fast, some people went slow, and just kind of started out. And actually on our way up, we had people who were carrying in the supplies and just passing us. I mean, they were going quick, and we're still just marching along very slowly.
It was so fast. They were practically running, and like in that picture, you can see that they have like 2 people carrying some. Some of the kids were carrying one individually by themselves, which was crazy. And we don't move much in America, not as much as these people.
Nope.
And these kids, kids were running past us. Some of them actually lapped us twice for more stuff.
Yep. So the trail started out pretty flat, and then started to get pretty steep pretty quickly. Our goal was to try to get up to the top with this tree, which is called Bubog. And we were going to have breakfast there. And meanwhile, these pictures don't show justice to how hot it was, how steep it was, and how much you really started feeling we're hiking, and we're hiking up very steep areas. But at the top, a little bit later, there was this nice little stream. The water is cool, so we all took time to just stop there for a little bit and cool off.
And that's kind of where we split up into 2 groups. We had kind of a faster group that went ahead a little bit, and then we had a bit of a slower group that could take it at a pace. Yes?
What about Pastor Reed? What's going on with Pastor
Well, so, yeah.
Okay, so the night before, I'm not sure if it was the mangoes or I brought something with me, but I threw up more than I've ever thrown up in my life. About every 30 minutes for 4 or 5 hours, my stomach was twisting in complete knots, and I was very nauseous on the hike. And trying not to throw up, but my body already, when I get hot and overheated, I get nauseous. So it was I was trying to do everything I could just to keep it in and make it on the hike.
So there he was sitting in the cool water to try to cool off. But, to this point, everyone's spirits were good. They were high, and we just continued on. And there's a picture of just the roots that were growing over the trail there. And this was right before we started to come into the village that was there. And you can see some areas just very, very muddy. And so you're just walking through it in Crocs, you're walking through it in sandals, and just kind of slipping around a little bit. And so these are some of the views that you could see just from the ridge where we're walking along. So once you got past the steep part, there was a section where there was a ridge and you're just walking. It's pretty flat. And then you start the descent down into the town. And everyone is tired after the hike.
Very
Very
tired.
tired. And this is Pastor Reed getting some help to rehydrate. So he actually had to get some IV fluids after the hike.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, was staying down. Yeah. So, and that's, one of the things that everyone has asked, how was the hike? How was the hike? It was hard. It was
Very.
hard. You're not really prepared hearing about it, how difficult it's going to be. And there were definitely sections, and I'll share more on our hike out, but there's definitely sections that challenge you physically, but even more so challenge you mentally. And it's the mental challenge that can break you if you let it. But we were going along as a group together, and honestly, that's what helped us. We were all on a mission. We were all wanting to get to where we needed to go, and you weren't doing it alone. There was someone right there beside you to help you keep going. And so even the tough sections where it's going straight up, where it's hot, your legs are burning, you're exhausted, you're dehydrated, you were never alone. You were never alone. And so this was after we got there. They brought some foam planes for the kids to play with, so they were having a great time. And I think they're going to talk about the accommodations.
Yes. Okay, so obviously, when you're up in a mountain village, you have slightly different accommodations than here in America. So Caitlin will tell you more about it, but we were in tents for the week.
Oh, early in the morning, we were awoken to the lovely sounds of the jungle. "1 a.m. 3 a.m.
5 a.m.
6 a.m. 7 a.m.
It's the rooster. The rooster has never. You think of like the morning wake up rooster. This guy. The rooster didn't matter. Like one rooster would do its thing way over on the mountain, and in a response, this other rooster would start going off, and sometimes it wasn't even a complete crow. Like it would just start and then just stop. And anyways, enough to like, it's amazing. Like here in the valley, you go out at night and it can be quiet if you're out in the country. But there, like you just listen in the accommodations we were in. We won't spoil it, but and it's just like, man, this is loud. Like you need a fan just to drown out the random noises.
You never needed an alarm clock, which was a blessing.
So from the front porch of Christina's parents' house there, you look at this beautiful mountain view, and there's like a little front yard. This is the front yard here. That's where we set up camp. And these are our houses for the week.
So we had to have a tarp underneath our tents and make them doubly waterproof because of the rain that we got. And we were still down.
Go back, Michael. Go back a slide. So up here is Christina's parents' house up there on the side.
So this was our fancy bathroom
By the girls' dormitory.
by the girls' dormitory. This was a toilet, and also you can see that bucket there. You would have a little ladle for your shower. So 2 in 1. And there's us doing our laundry fresh out of the shower. You know, it's kind of funny because you look at that bathroom and the shower and you think, how can somebody feel clean? You know, but when you are so sweaty and so gross as you will be up in the mountains, you do feel cleaner.
Stacy and I had gone in to shower, and Faith and Jazzy were coming out, and I heard her say, "It's amazing that you can come out of these bathrooms and feel clean."
So these are some of the trails that we would walk on to get from where we were staying down kind of towards the lowest point of the village up to where the work site and also the schools were where we were doing flag camp.
I got a question.
Yes.
Was there an issue with mosquitoes?
There was for me. I took it for everyone. Oh, the question was there an issue for mosquitoes? So I think just me.
I mean,
Does anyone else?
I didn't even wear any repellent or anything.
yeah.
Just me.
During the day, there weren't many mosquitoes. In the evening, if you were out and you weren't wearing pants and like a long sleeve shirt, you'd probably get a few. Or you just put on some sunscreen then. It was not as bad as I was expecting in that front.
I'm doing food, and Mariah is going to help me.
Yes.
Can you name the food? Anybody? Close, I think. Spoilers. Swamp cabbage. So this is one of the foods that we had when we were in the lowlands at the hotel. So we had pretty much a feast at the hotel. We had an assortment of vegetables like carrots and I don't even know what else, sayote and rice. And on our way to the hotel, we stopped at a market and got these star apples. And do you want to talk about the fruits?
So this is a durian. It's very spiky and you don't really want to hold it, but and it was not a very good one. We didn't get one. It didn't smell that bad, but it tasted bad. So this is mararing. I don't know what the name for it in English is. But
So that one's really special because
Yeah.
if you eat the rind.
because if you eat the outer layer, your lips will get like glue. It feels like glue on your lips, so it's like sticky. Yeah,
But it's really sweet and kind
Yeah,
of tastes like a
it
pear
is.
and is really soft.
yeah.
So these are banana blossoms and papayas, and the banana blossoms, Christina's mom made into a wonderful patty, like kind of like a zucchini patty would be an equivalent here, but it was really delicious. I don't even know how to explain this. So typically for breakfast, we had oranges and apples and bananas, and we were very grateful to Jen's mom who provided us with granola, which we ate for every breakfast. For breakfast, we typically also had oatmeal. We always had some sort of a scrambled eggs or hard-boiled eggs of some kind. We had peanut butter, lots of peanut butter to eat with our bananas and apples. And we had sometimes jackfruit or nuts or dried fruit for breakfast. Lunch was provided by our lovely kitchen staff at the school, and they typically made a giant pot of rice. Well, there's 3 burners, which is outside of fires, and there'd be a giant pot of rice, a giant pot of vegetables of some kind, and then I guess a pot of greens of some kind too. I think they're cassava greens. And then there was some sort of a squash or jackfruit vegetable medley of some kind. Do you want to talk about dinners?
So for dinners, we almost always had rice. Rice goes with every meal there. Every meal. I don't know.
So we usually had rice, we usually had like a pumpkin soup, or we had some sort of a vegetable stir-fry dish, or we had a soup. The soups were amazing, sayote and bok choy soup, or we had tofu in some sort of a soup, and then there was always bread available to make peanut butter and jellies, and there was always fruit available too. And everything was so good. We had a special meal towards the end with the staff, and we had burritos, which is like a hot commodity there, and we had some sort of a haystack, which is really special for our staff members that were there.
We did take over the peanut butter from here and all the Fritos, and that was the very precious food for people, for our group, but also the people there.
So just a quick word about our worships. It was really wonderful to have a mission team that was centered on God and prayer. Believe it or not, I have been on mission trips where God was not the center of the program, so I really appreciated Pastor Reed's leadership. We would have worship together each morning. One of us team members would usually lead out with a psalm or a thought that we'd had, and then in the evenings, Pastor Reed did a lot of his discipleship training with us, which was really great. We had some really good discussions, really good bonding times. It was actually something that I missed coming home, coming back to our house. I'm like, where's all the family? We're having family worship, and where is everybody? So that was a wonderful blessing. We're going to go into the construction next, and I'd like to invite Stacy to come up because he ended up being the man.
Swing on my daily garb here. So right out of breakfast, we would walk up the mountain to the construction site, and the first day that we showed up, Ray the pilot that you saw there, he was there. Pastor Kent was there. And they were kind of the guys that were going to lead this whole group because they had the whole plan in their mind of how they wanted it to go together. Ray has been working with this material and had the design laid out in his head, and and so we just kind of followed their lead that first half of the first day, and then we got some rain, and then. During that rain, Ray started feeling a little bit ill, and it turned out that he ended up feeling like he needed to go for the day, and Pastor Kent needed to get down to the lowlands with the planes so that he could get supplies and things that we needed back. Well, so we just finished up kind of what we were doing. We started the project with the leaders and had kind of a course to go, and we were building the trusses of the floor. This is the machine actually that bent up all of the metal pieces that look like that. I'm sorry? That's down in the lowlands, right next to the hangar where the plane parks. Those are the trusses, the floor trusses that we built that first day. And so we were finishing up that stuff after it rained a little bit and getting things ready, figuring that our leaders would be back. And we weren't so fortunate. So we... It was trying to figure out from there how we were going to go forward. The plane wouldn't start. Ray wasn't feeling good. Pastor Kent had everything. His hands were full down in the lowlands. So we just prayed, and we just decided we were going to keep going forward. And I have a little bit experience in building with metal, which came in handy, and so we strapped it on and we made it work. So now I don't know what the plan is. Pastor Kent gave me a cardboard drawing a piece of cardboard. You'll see it in a
wanna
picture
show the
here.
one? Yeah.
Piece of cardboard. And he just laid out a rectangle and said, I want a window there, I want a window there, I want a door there, I want a door there, and a window there. And go. And I was like, okay. So, little more than that it takes to build a house or a structure. And so I had a lot of questions, and we were trying to get answers. Well, at the same time, he needed to know how much material we needed to finish the project. How do I know how much material we need when I don't even know how much this building is going to take? So I was up until 1:30 that night, 2 o'clock, something like that, drawing up plans of my own, saying we need something to figure it out. So that's what we did, and we kind of went off of that. And day one, butchered my thumb. That's what she's doing, taping up my thumb.
Day one, we actually had to take him over to the clinic.
Yeah.
And he probably should have gotten some stitches in his hand, but
Yeah.
he's tough, wanted to keep going, and so. Yeah.
No, let's
he
go.
wanted to keep going. So
But all of them were, all the fingers were
Fingerless
All the
gloves,
fingers
because you
are
got to
thrown.
grab screws, you know? I mean, pouches.
yeah.
And,
So if you
yeah.
see his hands, this is a representation of the
What he
many
looked like all
bandages and things that were needed.
And in addition, his toe, but that we didn't know until shower time. Took off his shoe and his foot's bleeding.
That was more towards the end of the week, but yeah. So I was not taking care of myself. When I work, I bleed. So it's just the way it is. So, but anyways, materials were being brought in with the helicopter that I got to see kind of come in from the construction site. But this is really cool. It's long lining all of these boards that look like they are going to just absolutely snap, but I can't believe that they actually held together. It was amazing. So squaring things up on the construction site, wore the do-rag because I sweat like crazy, and it was very, very hot, as you have heard. So the do-rag was a huge help. Anyway, the Palawan people, they were in it. Man, they wanted to be there and learn. They were over your shoulder, learning what you're doing to try to take away some sort of skill afterwards.
Yeah,
and anything that they could do.
There were 4 or 5 that would show up every day consistently to help us. And at one point, I saw one of them. It had rained, and so there was mud on the ground. He was actually drawing out the structure that Stacy was building. And so he was over there learning and trying to draw it out, which was amazing.
I just wanted to share too, actually one of the days, one of the patients that my parents had, he's an epileptic, and he fell in the fire and lost one arm and part of a hand, and he was helping.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Megan, he
Megan.
came one day and he was helping carry the beams.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. These people have a heart of gold. They live a very, very hard life. Everything is a challenge to them. It really gave me perspective about there's a picture of the drawing that I got. And I'm trying to grow the drawing. That's more than what he actually gave me. But anyway, I ended up getting graph paper and actually doing something. But I do that as a profession. That's no big deal. The people, their attitude toward life, toward other people, inspired me because of how hard their life is. I was able to recalibrate and go, I have it so easy. That my hardest trials is only a beginning for them. It's just, and they're so happy. Mm-hmm. Did anybody ever see anybody that looked like they were having a bad day? I did not. And the whole week, consistently, and they were always right there, ready to help, just had their heart in it.
We had one day where they worked with us all day, And at the end, we determined we needed some more materials brought in. And after working with us, they left, hiked down, carried everything back up that evening for
Like it
us.
was a walk in the park.
And left like
It's
at
just-
4 o'clock in the evening and was back by 6:30 or something.
Yeah,
6.
and so we stand up and we applaud this guy, and he's like, "What? This is what I do," you know.
And one of the days, one of the Palawan men, we needed a ladder because by now we're putting up walls and we need to be higher up. And so they went and got out of the school or the admin building a little step stool ladder, which clearly was a household thing, not construction material. But that's all what we had. Yes, the wooden one right there. That's all we had. And so
Really
Caitlin
rickety.
went looking for ladders, found 2 ladders, brought them or had them brought to the construction site. And then I think the Palawan guys examined it and found that they were termite infested. So we couldn't use them. So they went to where all of a sudden all 4 guys that were always with us disappeared. They went out into the jungle, chopped down bamboo, and then started. Do we have? We do. It's a little bit later. Okay. Okay. So then, so they started putting this ladder together and built us an entire ladder out of bamboo. And so I think that's what he pointed out. Okay, so here we have Caitlin was so resourceful the whole week. And she saw that, so Michael and I were doing the cutting of the steel the whole week. And a lot of times I would scrunch up my skirt anyway, just because, you know, this is true construction gear to wear a dress. But
OSHA approved.
yes. But then I was cutting one day, and normally I would, you know, put it on something and be cutting. But this one day I had to sit on the floor, and so I just sat on the ground. And then when I got up, I realized that, all the hot shavings from what I was cutting completely destroyed it. So then it was even more resourceful to ball it up. And so Caitlin, then after that, said, I'll make you an apron. So she runs off, she finds a rice bag, because rice bags are like used for everything. We sat on them and we used them to cover up and we used them to put tarps in and we used them for all kinds of things. So she put holes in it, made me an apron so that I could cut the rest of the week and had a skirt and an apron.
And let me tell you about this picture. If you have ever used a drill that has a Phillips head screwdriver on it, that will try your patience. Let me tell you. There was one day, I think I was almost in tears because they are very hard to drill in. This one, technically, I know now is a hex head, which was much better. But we had to put a ton of screws into metal. Some areas of the metal were softer, some were harder. But yes, there was a not so great relationship with Phillips head.
How was the hex bit without a magnet?
So I found out, and I didn't know this, but drills have in the bits, they have magnets, and those magnets help keep the screws in there. If you don't have them, they just keep falling out. So it is very helpful to have the magnets in there.
So then building that ladder.
Yep, this is, they're actually building the ladder right now.
Yeah.
So Josiah, did you learn a lot by doing this with them? What was interesting too is I was periodically watching them as they're building this, and one of Abner, I think, stopped, ran up to the construction site where we had our like makeshift shed, I guess, if you will, and grabbed a drill, ran back, and he's trying to drill into this bamboo to put these together. And finally he's like, yeah, this is not working. So he drops that and starts doing, cutting out with a knife to make their own. And it just made me realize that, we come with all of our
Fancy
tools
equipment.
and electric and cordless and whatever. And that's not always the right tool
For
that
the
we
job.
need for the job. And it was just, I don't know, it was impressive for them to make this.
Yeah. Let's say something about the crew of people that I was fortunate and blessed to work with. I had told you a little bit about the Palawan heart, but the crew of people that we actually went with was just next level. Every one of them were all in. I could have gone there. I have worked with crews of professional men that show up on a site that do not have the heart that this group had. They were bound, determined, though unskilled, to begin to learn. Not just learn, but to apply every ounce of effort that they came with to make this thing work. The way that they looked out for each other, their compassion towards each other, the way that they looked for things ahead of time, if they would see a rhythm of things that needed to be done, like happened on a construction site, and they would log it in and know ahead of time what you needed when you needed it. That kind of heart, that kind of dedication is invaluable on a work site. Professionals I have worked with my entire life that don't have the heart of these people. And we were able to achieve more than I could ever have imagined with the crew that we had. Yeah.
And we want to say a special thank you to our leaders of the crew, Stacy, Pastor Reed, Michael. I mean, we were there trying to help in any way we could, and they were so patient with us, and just showed us what true leadership looks like. So we're just so thankful, and we could not have done this without the work, that went into the plans and, all of that. So it was truly, everyone who was on this trip was called to this trip for a reason and a purpose, and it went
It was
well.
amazing to see God, what he can do with little. We literally had nothing. We didn't have a plan. We didn't have all of the supplies. We didn't have all of the tools. We didn't have all of the skill. God started, Jesus, our Savior, started his mission with 12. Unskilled. Look what he did. He does it every day.
And again, this is an example of Caitlin. She's so resourceful and running around and she's organizing all this. So this was our on-site, like as in on the floor of the building, her organization.
You want to talk about our storage or what we had to deal with?
Yeah, so the rain. Well, one of you girls, I'm talking a lot. But
Yeah, so this was our little storage area, which Caitlin kept organized for us. Thank you so much. As you can see, our tools are being stored back here, and there's a tarp over it. Anytime there was rain, you had to go and cover up all the tools, plug everything over here. Here's where the batteries were being charged up. And then you had bags of just dirt that were taken from the construction site. And so you're having to navigate through this to get back there. But anytime it would rain, you have to unplug everything, cover everything up, and then get it all back out again.
And the mud. Look at that floor.
That
That floor
white.
will indicate how much mud. I ended up, I don't know if you can see my shoes, these shoes, the mud would pile up on them so heavy, I'd walk right out of them. So I ended up having to strap them to my ankles just so that I could get something done.
Wait, can I give a shout out to Giuseppe?
Yeah.
Okay, the last day. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Giuseppe, also known as Josiah. There was 2 Josiahs on the trip, so he received the nickname Giuseppe. And on the last day, they were doing specialized work, getting the top of the building up. I don't know what those are called.
Trusses.
And Giuseppe and I were kind of cleaning up the site, getting rid of the scraps, making sure it wasn't under feet because they were really sharp shards. And we were hauling things back down into where Christina's parents live. And he took, 10 trips of things from the construction site all the way down the hill to where it needed to go once we were done. So this is one of the backpack-like structures, and he would haul 20 pounds of metal shards. He hauled the saw thing. He hauled the gas that we use for the generator down this long, steep path, and he was such a trooper. It was amazing.
And just keep that basket in mind when Christina and Caitlin talk. Keep that basket in mind.
Mud.
Mud.
Enough
So this
said.
was the day this was Friday. We got a lot of those trusses built, hanging up there upside down, getting ready to get swung up. Some of the corner sheeting on just to start things off. But yeah, this was the end of Friday. So yeah.
Yeah, and so the bonus
It's just
day
setting the end
is
gable truss, yeah.
Yeah, the bonus day is when we were all hiking out. The guys stayed behind to get the trusses up, the roof up, because we felt we were behind, and so they got an extra part of the day to get all the rest of that done on the top.
Yeah.
So a big shout out to them.
And these Palawan guys, they squirreled around that roof like they were meant to be there. I mean, they were on it. And the medical team.
All right, so we didn't really go over with plans of doing any medical work, but I guess when you have some medical skills, people just call on you. So the very first Sabbath, we're there, and we have literally hiked in Friday afternoon, right? So we're all tired. I'm tired. We're like, I think, sitting down at breakfast when my little sister, Jillian, who's from there, lives there, comes running up. Hey, one of our guys went into the jungle to change for church, and he got a piece of bamboo stuck in his foot. And I'm thinking, okay, what does that mean? I don't know. So I go running down with her. I find this kid laying on the ground. He has a piece of, they call it sumbaling. It's the little bamboo that's about this big, and it's jammed in between his toes about this far into his foot. And I was like, ooh, that looks painful. So we were able to cut off the shoe and then yank it out. My brother-in-law carried him up, and this is us carrying him up to the clinic. We went and grabbed Stacy. I'm like, Stacy, we need you just in case we need extra help carrying. And so my brother-in-law, he carried him part of the way. One of the other kids took him after a little bit, and then Stacy took him the rest of the way. And it was really sweet. My brother-in-law was like, wow, he's strong. He was really impressed with Stacy.
No. Yeah, no, not at all. So this guy, the one that's carrying the kid now that got hurt, I don't know his name. Junie.
Yep.
He came. Now I'm sitting on the porch, and I'm watching this guy come from way down by the airstrip. And he's trudging up this hill with this guy on his back. And I'm like, man, that's an effort all by yourself. And he's carrying this young man. And then the hubbub started with, we need somebody just in case.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, okay, I guess, yeah, I'll go. And so we went. And I just put my hand on his shoulder and I said, I'm here to help if you need assistance. So he gets quite a ways further up the hill. You can see the hill, how far we have to. Well, that's like not even halfway there.
Nope.
But anyways, we get over that hill down a little bit, and then we start to go up a little bit, and then we go down into a what would you call that? Ravine.
Yeah.
And then you got to go back up after you cross the river and over to the clinic. But anyway, so I took him for what I would say is a pretty short distance. And I'm telling you, I was praying. No. I was praying. Literally, God help me get this kid there. My legs were on fire trying to climb that last hill. I'm like, don't let me drop him. And I made it. But yeah, strong? No, he was strong. These people are strong people.
Anyway, they really appreciated your help and stepping in. So we took him up there. I gave him an injection in the area just to numb it up so that we could just flush it out. There wasn't any way I was going to stitch it up, but we needed to clean it up because it was not the most sanitary conditions in which he had sustained his injury. So we got him cleaned up, and he actually walked home after that, amazingly enough. So this is the clinic. Hannah is one of the nurses who is serving over there with my parents right now. She's a nurse from Denmark. And so she had some patients. She's taking care of a little girl here on the clinic porch. There was another visitor, Hannah Rasmussen from Washington area. She was there just short term to help train in midwifery skills. Mariah really connected with her, and they learned a lot about delivering babies and giving IVs and resuscitating newborns. So they had a great time with that. Here's Pastor Reed getting ready for the day, and Jillian learning IVs on her sister. You know, this is what we do in the mission field. So all in a day's work. So while we were there too, I'm going to let Caitlin share about this, but this is the medical team at the clinic this year. Help me out with the names. Adina from Romania, who's a doctor. Hannah on the left, who's
Deborah.
from Denmark, and then Deborah, who's from Brazil and Netherlands and Germany and several other places. So they had a patient, and they said, Caitlin, we need your help.
So I do ultrasounds here in the United States, and when I was there, I offered them my services if the need should arise. I did a couple gallbladder exams, looking for gallstones, etc. And then this one patient in particular who came in, her oxygen stats were in the 70s, which, if you know anything, it's supposed to be at 100. It was really low. She was struggling breathing, her legs were swelling, and I go in and I do an ultrasound of her heart. She was in very severe right-sided heart failure. It was a really bad situation, and that sort of thing, they don't do very well. So I was able to tell the providers that, you know, this is an urgent situation, and we were able to fly her down to the lowlands to a hospital. And in that process, remember that backpack Giuseppe was carrying in that picture earlier? So one of the locals was able to put her, his patient, in the backpack to carry her probably a 20-minute walk all the way down to the airfield to get her flown out down to the lowlands. So it was a good situation that we were able to find answers for her and her family. And in that situation, I was brought to tears. I knew what the situation was, and I told the providers, and I went, Christina was in the construction site, and I went and told her, like, we have this patient, it's an urgent situation, it doesn't look very good, and we can't communicate very well with these patients, they don't speak English. And Christina went back with us. I don't know if they were Christian or not, but Christina was able to talk to them and pray with them and rub the patient's feet, and it brought me to tears, just having you be there with them, and the woman's 2 daughters were there with her, and just giving them that answer of, you know, why is their mom not doing well? And I think that was really meaningful to me that you were there.
It was a blessing to minister to them. So many times with them, they are up against life and death, and for them, that's normal. But they have learned about God in a better way, and when we are able to direct their minds toward there is a life after death, there is hope beyond the grave, I feel like they really resonate with that, and they really appreciate that. So we were able to pray with the family and kind of comfort the ladies there, and I don't know. Sometimes you never know, you know, the prayers that you pray and the things that you say with people, you don't know the impact that it has. But it was a blessing to us to be there and just be able to reach out to them and share. So we do not know. She, apart from a miracle, she would not have survived. So, yeah.
This is, go back one frame. This is the back side of the clinic. So the clinic had probably 2-3 exam rooms. It had a medication room. It had sort of running water. And this is the back porch of it. Got a
And for
bamboo little
those
hut.
who were in the know, there's a nice bathroom and shower at the clinic.
I know.
Several of our people took advantage of that.
So one thing here in the States, we're spoiled by turning on a light switch, turning on the heater or air conditioning, and firing up the computer or air compressor, and not thinking about running out of power. And even though it's not on the agenda to talk about right now, so this guy is a hydroelectric power generator right here. They get the water from a stream, I forget how far up the mountain, but they plumb it down. and it turns just like a hydro generator at a big dam, and it produces power for the clinic, the school, down to my in-laws. But when someone's computer boots up, possibly, or too many computers have turned on, or we're running one too many chargers at the construction site, everything shuts off. And anyways, I just thought I'd share that. So we're very blessed.
Okay, so now you're going to talk about the second part of our mission trip, which was the flag camp portion, which the three of us, along with Caleb Serrano, who was also there, did. My dad was primarily there for the morning, and then he would hop over to the construction site right after lunch.
So before we even start with anything with the kids, which we had a bunch of kids, but we did staff worships in the morning. We had, I don't know how many student leaders.
About 10, maybe?
Probably 10 student leaders.
Yeah, but in the mornings we would meet with them, and we would go and we would have worship. We'd sing songs. We'd do a little prayer, which was truly one of my favorite parts about that. I don't know if we have any pictures in there of that, but I just want to throw that out there.
And I'll just say one thing. So on Sunday, we met with these student leaders who were going to be helping, and kind of the idea was that we would be training and developing them, hopefully to do and lead flag camp. And the Palawan people are very shy. I mean, they're extremely, extremely shy. And we had 8, 10 girls who were helping us out. And Sunday, Jazzy and Faith and I are doing this training with them. And they're kind of wide, glassy-eyed, and really, really quiet. And just staring, kind of like deer in the headlights sort of thing. And I'm thinking, like, how are they going to lead anything? Like, they just seemed so, like, kind of in shock and awe and scared and intimidated. But it was really amazing just to see them kind of catch on to the vision, and they would learn and jump in. And by the end of the week, I mean, they were teaching classes and leading out, and they were talking about taking flag camp to other villages and going other places. And it just was really inspiring to see just them take a hold of it and really grow.
Truly was amazing. This is our morning meeting. So right after staff worship, there's a little bit of break where all the kids would gather in this kind of field area right here, and they would play games in the morning while we were waiting for time to hit, and they would come early. They were so excited to be there every single day.
Some of them had a 2-hour hike just to get there.
Yeah. They would hike in, and they'd be there, some 30 minutes.
Yeah, they're there at like 7:30 in the morning.
It was
ready
crazy.
to go.
So then we would have our line call, which we called Maglinia, which is line up in Palawana. And then we would have worship, and then we would have our 4 classes. So you can see here, this was craft class,
which I taught.
What was the craft?
It was kind of like a stained glass window where they would go out and they'd collect things from nature, and we would put popsicle sticks together, and they would press them in between, and we'd hang beads and stuff from the bottom, and they could write on it, they could draw on it, they could paint it, and they got to take them home, and they were beautiful. I hope there's a picture in there somewhere.
Yeah, like a sun catcher sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we should talk just real quick about the games. I don't know how to describe this, but the very first day of camp, hearing the laughter from these children during the games, that will be in my mind, I think, for the rest of my life. Just the delight and joy, like it was the purest, most exuberant joy. And they were, these were some of the staff too. I mean, and some of these, like, there's like, one of the guys is like 26 and he's in the 3rd grade. So some of these are like older, right? They've been spending a lot of time working on the farm or whatever, not necessarily at school. But the joy and delight they had in just some of the simplest things was, to me, it was like a taste of heaven. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear talking with some of the actual teachers at the schools there. And they basically said, the kids don't get to play at school. They have maybe 5 minutes a break per day. But they're not having organized games. They're not getting to play together as a group. And so I think that was very meaningful for them.
Yeah.
Very.
So every day I told a continuing story. If you've ever read the story of Samuel Morris, just an amazing story. I recommend it. Jillian was there as a translator, so it was one of those like kind of cliffhanger, if you want to find out the rest of the story, you got to come back tomorrow sort of thing. And then by Friday it was pouring down rain. We went up, we normally meet outside. We went up to the church to meet. And I mean, it's just floodgates, just pouring down rain, metal roof, nothing in between you and the roof. It was so loud, and we were exhausted. And I was like, oh, we should have just canceled camp for the day. And I didn't want to tell this. It takes a lot of energy for me. I'm an introvert to tell the story. But we did it, and at the end...
it took about an hour for him to tell the last remaining
long.
part of the
No,
story.
I have a video of it somewhere. It's like 53 minutes, I think. And I'll add more on that in a second.
At the end, there was just this moment where my translator started crying, and then I started getting choked up, and then I looked out, and almost every single one of the girls was crying. In fact, they took their batiks and they put it over their heads, and they just were like that for the rest of the story. Because Samuel Morris dies, but then there's this call where people go in his place to as missionaries to Africa, and I made an appeal for them to serve and to share. And just the response of the kids just melted my heart. It was like one of those moments. And then, of course, the Lord, this is what you were complaining about earlier, The Lord kind of used it as a moment for me, too. But I was just so grateful for the opportunity to be a part of that.
Yeah, so...
This is Faith teaching kalimbas.
This is one of the other classes, music class, kalimbas.
That, by the way, is a classroom.
Yeah, that was my classroom for the week.
That's pretty amazing just to think about kids. That's their classroom on a regular basis.
The kalimbas were a struggle.
The whole time.
They would get out of tune if somebody breathed wrong, it felt like. But we got through the week, and the kids loved them. Even if it sounded a little bit medium, they had a lot of fun, so it was great. And they learned very fast.
On that note, my class, in the rotations that they would take, my arts and crafts was right after music, and so every single time without fail, the kids would come into my classroom, because I had an actual closed-off classroom, and they would be singing the notes that were written on the board. And so it wouldn't be the words, it would be like 1, 2, 2, 3, and all of them in unison would be singing. And I would be talking and teaching, and they would be singing. And then I'd turn around and I'd look at another group, and they would be singing the other song. The whole week, it was beautiful. They really wanted to learn music.
Amen.
So in the afternoon, we would go down to the airstrip and basically play games until it got so hot that you couldn't run anymore, and then we would go down to the river. On the last day, we brought some bubbles, and they had a lot of fun with that.
So this is the hike down to the river. The hike in was terrible. It was, 4.5 hours. I'm not a very, athletic person. I do not like hiking. I'm going to preface that. I'm not a hiker whatsoever. Going down to the river was 10 times worse than going up to hike to Kamantian. I mean, at points, it was literally this steep. And, they had installed rocks to get down there, but the rocks were slick, and so you're, holding on to anything you can for dear life because you're slipping and falling down. And these kids went down every day. Faith went down every day. I couldn't do it.
It was worth it.
It was very
worth it, but it was painful.
Here's us down at the river. We used some of the rocks to make a little paint.
Mud and paint our face.
There's
Case in
Mariah. There's one of the kids. They had so much fun down at the river. There would be some days where we would just stay down there until the last kid left, and they would be down there till
Hours.
4 in the afternoon, so down there for 3 hours.
And I'll just mention this again. I mentioned this at the beginning, but this going down to the river is part of the culture change, the way the gospel has redeemed some of that culture, the fear. They didn't used to enjoy this place. They were afraid of it. One of God's gifts to them, they were afraid of. And now they can enjoy it in the freedom of the gospel. And it's just such a beautiful thing.
That was my...
I think that was the first day. Yeah. I was... Spirits. They thought the spirits hung out down the river. For there, a lot of the places that have a little bit of natural danger to them, like a high peak or the river, they associate with spirits, and they're terrified of the spirits. I mean, at least they used to be, and so they wouldn't go to those places because of fear of the spirits. So.
one last thing is we would all eat lunch together, which we don't have a picture of this, and I'm very sad about, but there was a small hut that they would make the food in. They talked a little bit about it with the construction. But all the kids, they had plates, and all the kids would come, and they'd get their plates that were pre-made, and they'd sit down together, and they would eat together, and they wanted to eat with us, and they wanted to hang out with us, and it was really cool to just, sit outside with these kids who, most of them don't speak any English very well, or they're too shy to, and they'll come up, and they'll just sit with you and eat and have fun and want to play games with you. And so truly, that was one of my favorite parts, was being able to just sit with the kids and not have to teach them, but be with them.
So the Sabbaths were special. It spoke to me because when you got to the church, there were not a single elderly person. They were all young. And I don't know if it was one of you two or if it was Kent that said the parents and the grandparents were supportive of their children or grandchildren coming to church and developing this, but that they were old and set in their ways, and so they didn't choose it for themselves, but they were supportive to let their children and grandchildren participate. So this was led by young people. You didn't see a single older person. I mean, it was all young people. The land is owned by, I forgot his name, Nui. And Nui was one of them that was on the construction site every day, with aches and pains and probably arthritis and whatnot. So it was really impressive.
Yeah, so we were able to have 2 Sabbaths here. The first one was the day after we first got there. And so when we walked in, they had Sabbath school, but basically women sat on one side, men sat on the other side. And so we got there and kind of really not knowing what to expect. And the hike up to the church, I mean, you're sweating by the time you get there. So we're all walking in. We're thankful for Jazzy and her fans to keep us cool. But you get there and they start with Sabbath school. And then church is basically, and we had a heads up on this, thankfully, but churches, they come and say, will you do this for church? Will you do this for church? Will you speak today? It's kind of how church service goes. So be thankful that, we plan ahead and we ask you guys ahead of time. So you have time to prepare on our worship service here. But
Just wait.
Just wait. Yeah, we're going to try something new here. No, I'm just kidding. But they would come and ask. And so we had planned on doing special music that first Sabbath. So here we are doing special music the first Sabbath we got there.
So also on the first Sabbath, Christina and Michael had prepared us to say it was segregated, women on one side, men on the other side. But I had totally forgotten about that. So I brought a water bottle for Stacy and I to share and something else for us to share. And we get in, and I went, oh, we got to separate. Okay. Well, then I'm sitting there and I think, oh, I need my chapstick. So I got up. One of you two said, yeah, go ahead. And so I walked over. Michael's on the men's side, and I walk over, and all of a sudden he goes, wait, stop. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I thought, I can't cross the line.
Don't cross the line.
And he's laughing.
Meanwhile,
so then I'm not sure if he's serious or if he's kidding, and so I'm standing on my side, waiting for him to come to me and give me the chapstick.
Meanwhile, we're all sitting back just watching this unfold and looking at all the Palawanas. They're looking at what's about to happen. Is she going to cross the line or not? So that was our introduction to Sabbath worship that day.
So
He
was joking.
He was playing.
So that first Sabbath, we did get to sing special music, and we're like, okay, guys, this is what we're singing. Let's go. So, yes.
I was just going to ask, did they have Bibles? Were you teaching from the Bible?
Yes, so my mom has been working on Bible translation for years, so they have most of the Bible in their language. Yep. So this evening, we're going to learn a Palawana song with you. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to do a cappella. So this song, this song in English. It's called This Is the Day. This is the day, this is the day. So there's that. It's the initial "this is the day," and then there's a little echo, right? So we're going to do it in the Palawan. It's not going to be that hard because we're going to sing the first phrase, and then y'all can copy us. Okay? All right, so this is the first one. Ituang aldao. Can you repeat after me?
Ituang aldao.
Ituang aldao.
Ituang aldao.
Right? Binaal at ampo.
Binaal at tampo.
Wow, you guys are good. Lumamisyu.
Lumamisyu.
Yep, lumamisyu.
Lumamisyu.
Sampai
Sampai
manapsyu.
manapsyu.
Sampai manapsyu.
Sampai manapsyu.
All right, we're going to give this a try. Let's see how this goes. All right, you guys ready? Oh, does anybody need a sheet music, or do you want to do it from the screen?
The screen.
The screen. Let's do the screen. Okay. All right. You ready? Ituang aldao. Binaatampu. Lumamisyu. Sampai manapsyu. Together. Ituang aldao binaatampu. Lumamisyu sampai manapsyu. Ituang aldao binaatampu. Good job, guys. Now you know what it's like in the Philippines.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So the first Sabbath, Pastor Reed did have the sermon for us, and this is showing the last Sabbath that we were there, and he is telling the story of Samuel Morse, the same story that they had in their worship with the kids.
Which was in addition to the service.
It was in addition to the service, and then after the service, basically.
But during that, so these kids had already heard this story and they were already emotional, but now they're hearing it again. We're hearing it for the first time, and they're emotional all over again and crying and hiding their faces again, and it was very emotional.
Mm-hmm. So they had an interpreter, yeah. Yeah, so they had an interpreter, translator, who translated. Yeah.
It was Jillian, which is Christina's sister.
Yep. So after church, potluck. And potluck is they go out and they cut down some
Or
banana leaves, and then they make plates out of them. And so they spread all these plates out, and then they take and put food on every single plate, and basically make equal portions. And once they're done doing that, we pray, and then we go grab a plate. And your silverware are these things right here. They're your fingers, your hands.
Or they would get creative and tear a piece of the leaf off, roll it up, and use that like a spoon.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then we had the easiest cleanup ever, because you take your banana leaf and you just chuck it out the window. So that was it. Cleanup was done.
Farrah, no dishes.
Yeah,
Where is she?
Yeah. And so the second Sabbath that we were there, if you go back, the second Sabbath we were there, it had rained quite a bit. And so you actually have to come down. It's a steep climb up to the church. You're coming down. It was so muddy. We couldn't make it. We were slipping and sliding. And so I had this one older lady. She came, and she was small. She took my hand and led me down the path. Like, I'm slipping and falling, and she's just holding on to me, and we're getting down the path together. So, they're just so willing to jump in and, take care of you.
But probably wondering, what is with these Americans? What
Yeah.
do they do? Because we're like, ever so carefully, and they're just boom, and then they come back up, and then boom, right down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so then the last Sabbath we were there was a very special day because Mariah was baptized, but there were 8 girls total that were baptized that day in the Tom Long River. And something that was very special, which you probably won't hear the clip about it, but each girl had their favorite song, and they would all just start singing together as they were walking into the water, which just made it very special. And I know Mariah was so happy that her grandfather could baptize her, and here's a picture of it. background, they're singing, I Surrender All. Yeah. So, very special day. Yep, and these were all the girls with their mentors that were baptized. And here we are just taking a picture together. I was not barefoot most of the time. Sandals, Crocs. Now, if you ask Canaan, yes, he was barefoot.
But
the
then
whole
ask him if
time.
there were any injuries due to being barefoot.
Right. The people there, though, they were, they're very adept to, walking the rocks, being able to, maintain their balance and grip. But for us, no, even with the best shoes, we're still slipping all over the place. So in the church, in the buildings in the church, you do take your shoes off. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all too soon, all too soon, our time was over, and it was time to go.
Okay,
So the hike out was even more exciting than the hike in.
Through that stream, all the way up.
Yep. So this was part of the trail that we had to hike, and just to kind of set the stage, the hike in was actually a piece of cake compared to the hike out. It had rained several days before we left, and so the trails were mud. They were just mud. And you see the video shows one section where we have the water, the stream going through, and it's just rocks. You're basically climbing over rocks. And the muddy part was not the problem. The rocks and the stream were the slippery part. And I'll talk about that because I think I probably had the hardest time. So the men stayed behind to do the amazing work of kind of finishing the building, and they got to fly out later that day, which I'm very jealous, very, very jealous. But they did stay behind, and they worked hard. The rest of us kind of, took on the hike, and, you're tired. You've been there all week. You've been working all week, and now we're emotional. Most of us didn't really want to leave. We still felt like we wanted to be there, and so you start down on this hike, and the younger people did fantastic and made it down in like an hour. No, it may have been longer than that. The rest of us were going slower, and you get to the section where the stream is going, and you're just having to step over the rock, step through the stream, step on another rock, and for me, I just could not stay on my feet. I kept falling on these rocks and, landing on your knees, landing on your elbows, and it was a hard fall. And probably about the fourth or fifth time I fell, I just sat down and I broke into tears. And I had hit the mental part of that. And I just started crying, and I said, I'm tired of falling. I'm just tired of falling. And these women, they just gathered around me and just, comforted me. And, it's just going through it and having that mental block of, wanting to do something physically, but you're just so tired you can't keep going. And then having the love and support of the people who are there doing that mission with you is just a feeling like none other. And then we got up and we just finished, the hike together. But it was a rough hike. It was a rough hike. We made it down in about 3 hours, and a good portion of that time we are sitting on our bottoms sliding down the path.
So part of the it was me, Kane and Mariah, who went down a little faster, but we realized that if we just full sprinted down and slid half the way, we'd get down faster. So we basically just tumbled down the mountain. And I don't think Kanan had shoes by the time we finished.
I would just like to point out that Mariah, Kanan, and Josiah left Faith and I to go faster. So Faith and I got lost on the river, and we had to find our way down.
It wasn't lost as much as me just every 2 steps looking around and saying, Jazzy, I don't think we're in the right spot. And Jazzy would go, I think we are. Let's just keep going. And so we would kind of just keep going slowly. 2 seconds later, I'd do the same thing. We were in the right spot. I just didn't know what anything looked like. That was the longest part of the hike.
So that hike did finally end. Most of us spent some time on our bottoms, though it's okay. So we make it down to Brooks Point, and we had a little leisure time to go to market. So Sunday's their market day, so we went into town, saw some of the sights. This is the local transportation. We got some fresh pineapples and mangoes and papayas and bananas to eat for our supper, and the boys enjoyed the view from the pier.
And we got some ice cream at one of the shops, which was very good. But Caitlin's one of the things we got while we were in the market were batiks, which is what they wear. So Caitlin's gonna show us all the different ways you can wear a batik.
Oh, stand up on the top. Okay, you want to say? Okay, so maybe you should do this. Well, I can't do it I need my arms. Okay, option number 1, this is what the people wear up in the mountains. Option number 1 is wear it as a sash. Also, you can put objects inside, use it as a side bag. The women would also put babies in there and kind of like, side carry them. So that's option number 1. In church, they would take it around kind of like a sleeping bag. I guess they use it as a sleeping bag too in their houses. I don't know. But in church, the women would typically sit on the ground, because we sit on the ground in church, and they kind of cover themselves up to keep warm in church. So that would be a typical sight. Option number 3 is to use it as a skirt. So you see them wearing it kind of around your waist as a skirt. Mariah's wearing it kind of as a dress. They kind of take it around and tie it up kind of like as a dress. And I feel like that's the most common way the women would wear it around. But it's kind of a multi-use piece of material, piece of fabric.
Very helpful, very useful.
And we went shopping and we were able to get some while we were down
Yes,
in Palawan.
it was very fun. We had a lot of fun. So that evening we had another Last Supper at the restaurant. We had more of delicious food. And who brought this down? This was the mountain rice. Faith got gifted some of the mountain rice that they were making for my mom's birthday. Faith made it. Wow. So it was coconut rice cooked inside a bamboo joint. So we got to all sample that. It was quite delicious. And after supper, half of us who were still coherent loaded into the patrol, my dad's truck, and went to the beach and had a nice little walk.
How many people does it seat?
It seats 8,
I think it seats 6.
6.
And we fit 11 people.
Well, it's what we do. So we enjoyed the beach and came home to our beds, soft beds. We had been camping for a week. There was air conditioning. There was a clean shower and a clean potty, a sit-down potty. And the next morning, bright and early, we are off back to civilization.
It was very interesting because on our trip to Brooks Point to go up into the mountains at the beginning was a very different picture of what we see now. Like everyone was energized and talking, and now people are just exhausted and just tired, and Reed's just taking a nap there.
Face hammock, yes. New construction. So we eat again at the Adventist Hospital, another little meal there together. We jump on the puddle jumper from Puerto Princesa and say goodbye to Palawan. The end. Go ahead.
So it was an amazing trip. I'm so grateful to this community, grateful to the team. It was an amazing team to be with. We really bonded with each other. We all grew closer to God. I'm inspired by what the Georges are doing there. And imagine giving 30 years of your life to live to serve these people, and the difference that the gospel has made there. It'll move you to tears. It's just amazing. Thankful to God, to Jesus. There is so much joy in joining Jesus in what he's doing. That's the sweet spot in life. There's nothing better than that. And I felt like we got to taste and experience that on the trip. Part of our finale really was that last Sabbath when those 8 girls were baptized. And I want to invite Mariah to come on up here. I got to hang out with Mariah a little bit because after church she hiked with me up to go to visit April, our Child Impact child that we sponsor. And then to see her baptized there in the river was just amazing. Joining heaven in the rejoicing that they were doing. And let me tell you something about Mariah. She has got a missionary spirit. Seeing her there on the trip, I mean, she is more at home in Camontion than she is in Newmarket. And the Lord's going to do some amazing things because not only does she have a missionary spirit, but she's got a heart for Jesus. She has a heart to serve. And though she is young, I truly believe she fully has understood and given her heart to Jesus and made a lifelong, eternal commitment to him. And just being a part of that, seeing her baptized there in the water by her grandfather in that place on that trip, it was just a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing. Here at Valley Fellowship, we get to be Mariah's church family. And so something we haven't done yet, we waited till this moment, is to welcome Mariah as an official member of the Valley Fellowship Church. So Mariah, we are so happy for the decision you've made, and we're so happy that we get to serve Jesus alongside you. Very thankful. So we have a little something here. Yeah, why don't you bring those up? So this is, I know you got a certificate put on your wall. That's your official document. So if you get pulled over by anyone, you can show them that, that you're the real deal. We have some flowers here for you. And then there's another gift coming, but there was a problem with it. So it will arrive at your door. I'll deliver it to you sometime in the future. So, but we are grateful for you. And we did this there along the Tomalong River, but I want to just close this evening by doing the same thing here. In the New Testament, whenever somebody's baptized with water, the community surrounds them and lays hands upon them and prays for them to be baptized with fire, with the Holy Spirit. Because baptism is the beginning. It's not the end. It's not the finale. It's the birth of a life lived for God's kingdom. And that life can only be lived through God's presence and God's power. And so, Mariah, we just want to have a special prayer for you as we close this time here. So we're going to kneel here, and I just want to invite those who would like to come up. We'll just lay hands on Mariah and just have a special time to pray for her. Heavenly Father, there is nothing in this world more beautiful than a heart that you have filled with your love that is turned toward you. Thank you that we can see that beauty in Mariah. Thank you that you've saved her, that she has a desire to serve you and follow you. Thank you that heaven rejoiced as she went under the water, and that heaven has a plan for her life. And Lord God, we simply pray that you would continue to pour yourself out, that heaven would be emptied, that the Spirit would come down and fill Mariah, even at this age, that her heart, her life would be a flaming testimony of your love and your goodness, that she would burn with passion and compassion for you and for others, and that people who are interacting with her that their minds and hearts would be pointed toward you. Lord, you've got a calling upon her. Help her to hear and know that calling, to know what it is and where to go and how to follow you. And Lord, we just look forward to seeing and hearing your plan unfold in her life. And we know that that plan is bigger than her, but it's not bigger than you. And so we just pray just that she would experience not part of what you have promised, but the fullness of your presence, your promise in her life. Thank you, Lord, for this trip that we've been able to experience. Thank you for the lingering effects of that trip upon all of our lives. And we just want to all dedicate ourselves to you, to serve as missionaries, not just in Camantian, but here in Newmarket, in the Valley, wherever we are, that our hearts may glow and burn for Jesus Christ and help others to know the joy of serving him and being in a relationship with him. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.